Welcome to the May 2025 edition of the Inside Nutley Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Greco, and today's guest just might be the hardest working man in sports media. Among countless credits, he is the voice of Seton Hall basketball, the Buffalo Bisons minor league baseball club, the host of Fox Sports Crashing the Boards, the winner of the 2024 New Jersey Sportscaster of the Year Award, and most importantly for us, the president of the Nutley Family Service Bureau. Welcome, Dave Popkin.
Hey, Tom, thanks for having me.
I have to tell you, Dave, going through your resume took me quite a while. So first of all, let me ask you, having covered so many sports, you must have had your share of many credible moments. Can you pick one that stands out above the rest?
If you asked me 13 months ago, I would say no, because it's all kind of a blur. But last year, I had my favorite event that I ever called. It was the NIT. Seton Hall was playing, and my partner is Gary Cohen, who's the great Mets announcer. And because baseball season had started, he was not able to travel with the team, so I got to do play-by-play of the Seton Hall games on the radio for the NIT, like the last three rounds, including the semis and the finals at Hinkle Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. And for those that don't know, it's a historic building. I mean, they housed the Army and the Navy during World War II. They shot the movie Hoosiers there. Many presidents have spoken there. I mean, it's like 100 years old, so it's a great building. And Seton Hall ended up winning in comeback fashion against essentially the home team, Indiana State. There were like 20 Seton Hall people there, maybe 50 Seton Hall people, and like 8,000 Indiana State people. And Seton Hall came back and won the game, and I got to call it. And we did a really long post-game show that was memorable. And it was great. It was just a wonderful moment. And I felt like my calls were good. And I was just happy with the whole thing.
See, I mean, hearing that you say you thought your calls were good and everything, do you go back and listen to your broadcasts?
I do, and it was hard when I was like in my 20s because I wasn't super comfortable with my voice. It wasn't fully developed yet. I was young. But now I listen back to catch the ums and to catch myself repeating things and just little things that I want to clean up. But as in terms of my voice, I'm okay with it now, and I'm able to sit there and watch or listen to the whole game back and just critique it from a content standpoint.
Right.
Because I know now like when to get excited and when not to. Like in a baseball game, if it's a single to left in the second inning, I'm not going to give you grand slam in the eighth inning kind of volume.
Right.
So I'm able to, after thousands of games, manage that kind of thing.
Let's go back in the time machine. Where were you born and raised?
I was born at Fitkin Hospital in Neptune, New Jersey. Raised in Neptune City, went to Neptune High School. So I grew up down the shore, big Springsteen fan, and South Side, and a lot of the groups that we've talked about off the air. Great, in terms of growing up a mile from the beach and, not far from all the attractions in Point Pleasant and Belmar and Asbury Park. So it was a great place to grow up.
Tell me about some of your memories from that time.
Oh wow. I mean, Asbury Park, I love. I feel at home there, but it was kind of burned out at the time. But my parents would still take us there anyway to go to the boardwalk, to, just walk the boardwalk, go to the rides. They got married there, so they'd show us, hey, this is the Albion Hotel where we got married. And I always felt comfortable there. It was cool for me because Neptune High School was very racially mixed. Right now, it's uh, also ethnically mixed, but back then it was basically 50-50 black white, and I came from like a 100% white grammar school. So it was a cool experience just to meet more of America, and like I was on the basketball team. So I got to just experience a whole different world, and I think it was great for me. I learned a lot, and it was important for my development.
Were you always a big sports fan?
Always a big sports fan. Yeah, my parents weren't huge into sports, so we collected cards, my brother and I, and my sister was also an athlete in high school. My brother was a better basketball player than I was, but I played for a couple of years, played baseball all the way through. So baseball was my first love. And I mean, as you can see, behind me, there's dozens of baseball books and sign balls and stuff like that because I was an announcer in baseball for a long time. So yeah, I mean, I had a good upbringing. Like the kids in the neighborhood will all come over and you played outside. We didn't have phones and we would play and you learned how to work it out.
You attended the University of Miami in the early 90s, correct?
I did. It was championship U at that time. In football, we won 2 national championships, almost three, and I got to announce the games there. I thought I was going to be the basketball manager, but for long story, it didn't work out, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me because I walked across campus to the radio station and started to do everything. I was the morning show host and did news updates and the blues show, and I became eventually a sports director of the station and could write out the schedule of what games people did. So I put myself on all the big games and traveled with basketball, baseball, and football. And it was a great experience.
What was it like with all those big personalities? And mention some of them if you can that were going there at the time.
I interviewed The Rock. He was a backup defensive lineman for us, Dwayne Johnson, a pretty good football player. Um, we were very ambitious, so we would go to Dan Marino's Sports Bar or Fuddruckers or some of the Corbett Sports Bar, some of these other places down there, either in Coconut Grove or in Kendall, and the restaurants or the bars would let us do our talk show there because we would bring Dennis Erickson, the head coach, or we would bring Russell Maryland or Darren Smith, or these guys that would end up playing in the NFL and were big stars in Miami. They would come to the show and we'd feed them and they would just, talk with us on the show. And it was a lot of fun. So I got to meet a lot of them through that vehicle, especially the football team. And basketball was easy because there's only 12 of them. We're traveling on the same plane
Right.
sometimes. And
Right.
so that was cool. But yeah, I mean, I got to meet everybody back there at the time. Bob Marley's son, Rohan Marley,
Right. Yeah.
was a good linebacker for us. He was cool. So a lot of characters for sure, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, they were almost like a pro team back then, right? I mean,
Yeah, and big rivalry with Notre Dame back then, and Florida State, obviously. The University of Houston was a decent rivalry back then, but not as big as the other two. Is the Catholics versus convicts
yes.
era of football. Jimmy Johnson had just left, and Dennis Erickson came in and did a great job.
You started out in marketing, correct?
Well, I started out in baseball where you have to do everything. So we had to do marketing, sell tickets, sell sponsorships. I announced the games. I hosted a talk show. You had to pull the tarp, wear the mascot costume, you name it. I mean, baseball, you learn work ethic. It's every day. So soon after I moved back home, moved back to New Jersey, lived in Bloomfield before Nutley, and I took a job with an agency, some guys that I worked for previously at the Nets. I sold tickets at the Nets, and they had a marketing agency that concentrated mainly on sports. And I learned a lot there from Jim Lamparello, who was a longtime Nutley resident, moved down the shore, subsequently, and Michael Rowe, who was the president of the Nets for quite a while in the 90s. I worked for and then, with those guys after that. And it was a great experience. We had all kinds of, clients and wild experiences.
When did you first know you wanted to get into broadcasting?
It was my junior year of high school, and my coach was a former college player at Monmouth. His name was Russ Walling. And he grabbed me just before the season started and he said, "Listen, I'll put you on the team again, but you're only going to get in the game if we're up or down by 30 points. Or here's a video camera." And he handed me like a VHS camera. And he said, "You could tape the games and scout us, and you'll be of more use to the team. You could still go on the bus and come to practice and travel with us and learn basketball, but you're never going to play." And I thought about it for about 2 seconds, and I had been getting beat up in practice by these guys that became Division I players. One of them got drafted by the Nets. Another one became one of GW's all-time leading scorers. These guys were really great. So I did it and recruited my buddy to hold the camera, and I took the microphone off of it, and I made up rosters, and I would sit in the top row of the bleachers and call the game into the tape recorder. And the coaches took it back afterwards and would watch it and be like, "Hey man, you're funny, like you're good, your calls are good, you should do this." And that's kind of all the push that I needed. I applied to the bigger communication schools at the time, and Miami just seemed like the best fit for a lot of different reasons.
What was your first paid broadcasting job?
I think the first paid game that I did on radio was in Belle Glade, Florida. My buddy Jim Frivola got a gig up there doing the play-by-play, and he dragged me with him. So we would like do high school football 2.5 hours north of Miami, like in the center of the state on a Friday night, drive back and do the Canes game on Saturday. But we would get like, I, it felt like big money at the time. I think it was like $150 a game each. And, in 1990 or 91, for a college kid that was living on $20 a week, it was pretty good. So we did that for at least a season or two. And the crowds were nuts there. Like they'd get thousands of people for high school football in Central Florida. And they had Fred Taylor and Riedel Anthony and a bunch of guys that made the NFL, play on those teams. And a lot of those guys actually went on to play at Miami as well. And then the first TV gig that I had was at Monmouth Cablevision down the shore. This guy John Anderson put me on everything from Little League baseball to my first actual gig was doing sidelines for a lifeguard tournament in Seagirt, New Jersey. And the guys would, run out of the water all wet and out of breath, and I'd stick a microphone in their face, and I don't know what to ask, at that point. So you learn to think on your feet pretty fast.
You're perhaps best known as the voice of Seton Hall basketball. How'd you get that job?
I'm one of the voices. I mean, Gary, is legendary, and he does the games with me for the last 22 years. So, but yeah, I've done the games for a long time, and at the marketing agency we talked about, Seton Hall had been our client, and I had done their advertising campaign and some of their sales for several years. So I got to meet all the people there, and I knew that they were going to turn over the broadcast and let Warner Fusell go, who had been somewhat of a legend there. He had been doing the games on WABC for about 10 years, and he was a big personality, great voice, great guy. I got to meet him several times over the years. But I knew they wanted to make a change for various reasons. And I knew they weren't going to hire me because like every big announcer wanted the job. Like all the baseball announcers, like John Sterling, Gary Cohen, like Bob Wischusen, like all these guys were applying for the Seton Hall basketball job because it was something to do in the off season. So they gave Gary the job doing play-by-play, but they wanted a second person that could be like a jack of all trades to fill in for him, to do color for him, to do the halftime and the post-game highlights and interviews and just run around and create content for the website, and somebody that had, multiple skill sets. And I fit the bill. I sent them a tape of me doing Atlantic 10 basketball on TV. I didn't even send them a radio tape. And they were like, "Yep, that's good. You guys will be a good fit." And our broadcast has been exactly the same since day one in 2003. Like we haven't changed the format. We haven't changed like the way that we interact. It's been remarkably consistent, and it's been, one of the greatest things to happen to my career.
Oh, 22 years. That's a long time. That's pretty amazing.
In radio, especially now, I mean, it's changing. Like we're not on a radio station anymore. We're on Sirius XM, and we're on the stream. You can get us on various apps and on the website, and that's how people listen anyway now. Um, but I'm just happy that Seton Hall has kept radio, and that Learfield, our employer, can still sell it, and they want to do radio. We get to talk to the coach every game, so it's a good service to the fans. I think that they appreciate it. Radio is like one of my favorite things. It's so portable, right? You can take it in the car, you can take it to the backyard, to the beach, you're planting things or whatever. Like you can kind of have it with you and still experience the game. So I love it.
With the tidal wave of social media and podcasting, sports media has changed so much over the last decade or so. What's your take on that?
I would say that it's still as hard to make it at the top levels, like your Jim Nance, Ian Eagle, Joe Buck level. It's still as hard as it always was to like make it full time as a network announcer. Um, but in terms of having more opportunities, every school is telecasting or radio casting every game, every home game, like Monmouth or NJIT or you name it. They're doing the games. So if you're coming out of like my sports broadcasting camp or college or different things, and you're a 22-year-old announcer, you can get gigs. You can go do Villanova lacrosse one day and NJIT women's basketball the next day, and there's a lot of tonnage out there. And then it's just like the cream rises to the top, like any profession. Like whoever's really good, they'll find you. And, if you're aggressive and put your tape together and send it out there, um, it's still possible.
You worked at a bunch of different places and still do. I'm gonna just mention the place. You tell me what comes to mind.
Okay.
Yes Network.
Yes, I did some Seton Hall games on TV, and I hosted the Lewis Orr show. He was the first coach that we had at Seton Hall, and he was completely different from every other coach I've met because he was very quiet, very religious, almost like a minister. And he was a non sequitur for college basketball. And eventually they fired him because he just like wasn't an aggressive recruiter. But he had gotten them to the NCAA tournament twice, and like his method worked for him.
Right.
So I got to do the shows with him, and it made me become a better broadcaster and interviewer because I really had to pull the answers out of him because he wasn't a big talker. So I remember that. But it gave me some good FaceTime on Yes when it was just starting to come into vogue with the Yankees and the Nets.
ESPN.
ESPN was great for about 8 years. When ESPN 3 was coming in, they would send me all over the place. I went to Atlanta, I went to Pittsburgh, I went to Syracuse, did Rutgers, Princeton, basically Northeast. Any of those games that weren't on like the mothership on ESPN or ESPN 2, they fell down to ESPN 3. So you'd get like a Pitt BC game, or you'd get a Syracuse Rutgers game, or something like that. Um, and I got to meet all of these former athletes that I was basically coaching because it was like a place for them to have a breeding ground for like somebody who's doing their first game. So Kurt Warner and Drew Henson and Adam Archuleta and a million of these announcers that either went on to bigger things or not because they couldn't do it. Like I was like a coach almost for them. They would put them with me because I was a veteran announcer. So it was great. It was a great experience.
What about Fox Sports?
Fox has been interesting. I have not technically worked for Fox TV because I work for Rush Media, and Rush Media crews stuff on FS1. And that's been good exposure for me like the last 4 or 5 years. They've let me do women's basketball, soccer, men's and women's, softball, baseball. So that's been cool. Like the next threshold for me with Fox would be to step up and do men's basketball games, like Big East games. That's my goal. But those crews are terrific, really professional, makes you step up your game and hey, it's on national TV. People are watching. Even if it's softball on a Wednesday night, there's people watching. And it really makes you be um, on the top of your game and just hyper aware.
What about MSG?
MSG was the best because at the time I was just coming off doing the Newark Bears games. I was like 30 years old, had just moved to Nutley maybe a couple of years prior, and I needed like a good local gig. And the Northeast Conference did a lot of TV games at the time, and because of what we talked about earlier, there wasn't as much fragmentation. MSG was a much bigger thing than it is now because they had Knicks, they had Rangers, they would eventually have Islanders, and a lot of people watched the channel. So if it was an off night, and you were looking for basketball, you would find the FDU Wagner game, and I was doing that game.
You were named 2024 New Jersey Sportscaster of the Year by the National Sports Media Association. What does that mean to you?
It really meant a lot because it was my peers voting on it. It was the other sports writers and sportscasters from New Jersey. I had been nominated once before, but there's such stiff competition in this marketplace. I mean, if you're talking about New York and New Jersey, it's the number one market in the country. So it's hard to stick here as an announcer and then to have, your peers recognize you as one of the best was cool for me. It's just been good, pat on the back and good publicity. There were some really good announcers nominated this year. So maybe it was just my turn, but yeah, I was happy. I'm going to go to the ceremony in Greensboro, North Carolina at the end of June, and some of my family's going to be there. So it's a cool experience.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. You've also done some music radio work, correct?
I have. I'm an interviewer for WBGO. I kind of fit in the other category. BGO is the most listened to jazz radio station in the world. It's right in Newark, 88.3. And I do blues and zydeco and folk and whatever else like is adjacent to jazz, and it's been my favorite thing. I love it. I'm basically interviewing my CD collection. I interviewed Robert Cray twice, and Charlie Musselwhite, and Joe Bonamassa, and Sue Foley, and all these great artists. And then I go to the shows and I meet them, and it's cool because I'm a musician and a music collector like you, and an appreciator of music. So to hear all their stories and to spread the word and try to keep the blues alive, frankly, is part of my mission with that, and I've loved it.
When did you move to Nutley?
We moved to Nutley in 1999. I was at the Bears. Rick Cerrone and Joe DiVincenzo, the county executive, were buddies, and I knew them pretty well. And they knew I was looking for a house, and they were like, "You got to buy in Essex County. Like, we want everybody that works for the Bears to live in Essex County and kind of be near the stadium, and give back to the county, yada yada." So I took that seriously, and we looked all around, Bloomfield and Montclair and Nutley, and we found a house. Dot Greengrove, who you might remember that name, was a realtor for many years on Center Street, I think, and she was with McMunn Realty, and she showed us around. And one day, Cindy, my wife, called. She said, "Dot found this house on Hillside. You got to come and check it out right now." And I'm like, "I'm in a meeting with Rick. I'll be there in a little while." So I came, and this place that I'm in right now, doing this interview, was a disaster. It was two old ladies that lived here, and they didn't do anything for 40 years for upkeep. So we basically had to gut it, and it's an old Victorian, 1891. It's a Lambert house, and we have done everything to it, and I never want to leave. It's great. A lot of nooks and crannies and unique things about the house, stained glass. It's plenty of room for us as a couple without kids. So I love it.
You've been all around the country through your broadcasting career. What made you decide to live in Nutley?
Well, I mean, Cindy was a teacher in Fairfield, so it was convenient for her. And I was working at the Nets in the off season, and then I was working at the Bears, so it was convenient for me. And it's ended up being like the perfect place. If I had to actually do it scientifically, I couldn't pick a better place because it's close to Seton Hall and to Newark, where Seton Hall plays. It was close to the Meadowlands, where they used to play. It's close to the city. It's close to the airport. It's close to Westchester, where some of my work is. And it's only an hour from my family at the shore. So it's been ideal. And with, the people that I've met here, and the parks, and the social service organization that we'll talk about, it's just been a really good fit. My neighbors, I have the best neighbors. Like I don't want to leave my block.
That's great. All right, so in 2023, you became president of the Nutley Family Service Bureau. How did you become involved in the bureau?
My wife had been just donating some food here and there, and I have an event company that manages like large charity walks. That's basically one of our main pieces of business is we manage large outdoor events. And we would always have leftover food, fruit or chips or water or whatever. So I would come and bring in, a truckload to NFSB. And at one point, the executive director grabbed me by the ear and dragged me into her office and said, "Hey, who are you and what else can you do for me?" So I said, "Well, what do you need?" She said, "I need younger volunteers. I need money. I need exposure." And I said, "How about a rock concert?" And she said, "Perfect. Let's do it." So we started Rock Hunger, and there were maybe 100 people there the first year. I think we raised like $2,000 at Old Canal Inn. Um, it was all my friends and family basically in the band. Um, and it was great. Like it was really fun. Like it was a friend raiser as much as it was a fundraiser, and it, gave the organization some publicity. And then I became more involved after that, doing the concert every year, doing the garden party at Graham Hardy and Silas Mount Sears place, the garden there. Um, Met them through that. They became good friends. And then eventually I was invited to be on the development committee and then on the board, and I was on the board for a couple of years before, I was elected president. And it's been a labor of love. We say time, talent, and treasure, And it's been all of that. It's been like a full-time job like the last 3 years. So um, I'm really proud, of how far the organization has come.
Tell us some of the things that the Bureau does.
Nutley Family Service Bureau is terrific. We've been around for 112 years. We have mental health counseling. That's a big part of our services. We have over 1,000 people a year that avail themselves of the counseling. We have a food pantry, of course, that serves over 600 people in a given year, over 200 families. So it's really necessary. And then we have case management, which kind of ties that all together. So previously, let's say 5, 10 years ago, it was good. People would come, they'd get a bag of food, and they would leave. Now we want to figure out why. Like, why are you here? How can we help? Can we help you in another way? Can we help you navigate services with the state or with your insurance company or some other thing that would help you either stay in your house or pay your power bill or whatever your issues are, get employed? We can kind of route them. So that case management's, do you need mental health counseling? Is that one of the reasons? So, we try to have a holistic approach to that now for folks. We push into the two senior buildings. We bring the food pantry to them because we don't want them to go out unnecessarily and fall and who knows what. So that's been great because it's kind of a social thing for them in the community room, meeting our volunteers and staff and each other. So that's been a good addition. We have a lot of services. Like I think our volunteerism is our best program. I really do. We have 150 volunteers, and it's everybody from like my 12-year-old neighbor next door that likes to come and work at the Scouting for Food drive to people that are in their 80s that work in the thrift shop. And everywhere in between, people that are recently retired, like that just want a connection, to do something good for their community, but also like create some friendships and some social connections. So I think that is one of the most important things that we do is that we're just like a central clearinghouse that people can come and work at our events, work at the pantry, work at the thrift shop, and help.
I think there's a perception in town that the Service Bureau is just for either senior citizens or lower income families, but it's not. It's for everybody in the town, correct?
It's for everybody. I mean, we have all ages of people um, that are clients, and we're trying to expand, our services moving forward. We have a great staff, with Catherine Carmichael, the executive director, and Peggy Conca, who you probably know, and Joan Roque, our director of the food pantry, and all of our counselors and staff. I mean, these social service work is difficult, right? Sometimes the population is difficult, just dealing with, limited resources, trying to do more with less. It's a calling, right? You're not going to get rich, working in that business.
Rock Hunger #8 concert coming up. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's great. We have it at Old Canal Inn every year. It's an outdoor music festival. We usually get over 200 people. Last year we raised $18,000 that went directly to the food pantry because it's expensive to run. Like you know what groceries are now, and even though people donate cans of beans and peanut butter and stuff to us, like we want to make sure people get fruits and vegetables and some protein as well. So some of that stuff, costs money. And the freezers and the staff, and it costs money to run the pantry. So we're going to try to go over 20,000 this year. We have 4 bands that are giving their time. My band, the Porch Rockers, is going to play. We're in the 5 o'clock spot this year. The event starts at 2 o'clock with the Sticky Wickets, who have been in Nutley for over 40 years, Nutley High School graduates, and they play the event every year and do a great job. We have Project Blue Book. Rich Teresi and his crew are going to play the event for the first time. They play a lot of gigs locally. And the Anna Felice Band. Anna has become a big part of the community. She's a volunteer for us at NFSB, talented singer, member of the Chamber of Commerce, and she usually plays like in duos and things like this. But this will be the debut for her full band at Rock Hunger on June 7th. And we've kept the ticket price the same. We want everybody to be able to afford to come. We want to meet people, tell them our story. It's $25, just like it was at Rock Hunger 1 8 years ago. So we want everybody to come out. It's a fun community event, and the bands are, in my opinion, very good.
It's quick hits time. You ready? I'm just gonna again throw out things. You tell me what you think.
Yeah, I'm good.
This is actually pretty good for you. Favorite Jersey Shore town?
Avon.
How come?
It's where I went to the beach as a kid. It's nice and quiet. They have a little restaurant there and just good memories.
Okay, I think I know the answer to this one. Springsteen or Bon Jovi?
Springsteen, I love all that Bon Jovi has done for the community because his kind of mission statement is the same as mine. Like he's trying to feed people and give back. But I love Bruce. I've seen him over 100 times. I'm going to Italy to see him in July, and it's my thing.
And your dog just happens to be named Clarence, correct?
My dog is Clarence, named after the big man. We knew he'd be big, and he was born just after Clarence Clemens died. So we carried on the tradition, and my dog before that was Rosie.
Oh my God, you are a Bruceaholic though, huh?
Bruceaholic, yeah.
Giants or Jets?
Giants for sure. I was a Giant season ticket holder.
Yankees or Mets?
Yankees, big time.
Favorite sports broadcaster growing up?
Bob Costas,
Favorite sports broadcaster now?
Iron Eagle.
Tell me about Hilltop Management.
Hilltop Management was born out of the marketing agencies that I worked in previously. I launched it 13 years ago, and sole proprietor. Um, I have a couple guys, my brother and one of my best friends, that help me manage the events. And we have helped raise uh, probably over $50 million for various causes in this area. ALS is a big client. We've managed their walks for 18 years, going back to my old place. It allowed me to launch Hilltop. I operate it out of my house here in Nutley. We do it all remotely, and then we go on site to all these events. And I do marketing and video and other broadcast projects too, but the events are like 80% of it. So like the Lung Association, Alzheimer's, autism, Crohn's and colitis, you name it. We serve as a logistical outsource to all of these people so they can concentrate on their teams and their sponsors and raising the money, which is the most important part. And then all the other stuff, the permits and the tents and the porta johns and the food and security and EMS. We do all that for these big events. A lot of them are in the city. It's basically from Long Branch, New Jersey, all the way north to Poughkeepsie. We cover that whole region.
What do you love most about our town?
I think the people. I did not get to know a lot of people in town before I got involved with Nutley Family Service Bureau, but just to see the generosity of the people in town and all of the connections, um, that's been my favorite part. I mean, there's a lot of great things, obviously. Like it's beautiful and the parks and the businesses in town and the food and all of that. But to me, it's like my neighbors, like my next door neighbors are, some of our best friends. And it's been a great pick for us, to live here for 26 years.
What are you most proud of, Dave?
I think just the impact that I make on other people. I've had a lot of interns that have gone on to great success, and people that have worked for me. I do the sports broadcasting camp every year. It used to be at Montclair State, this year at Seton Hall. It's our 24th year, so it's about 1,000 kids that have come through camp. And I've seen a lot of them go on to broadcast in college and professionally. And the ones that don't still gain confidence and are successful in whatever they do because they just gain a little bit of swagger and that communication skills and how to work with a team and how to show up on time and dress appropriately and shake hands and look somebody in the eye. Like we teach life skills as much as we teach broadcasting. And I've made, great friends through the camp. And I would say that that is something that I am most proud of. But I think just consistency. Like I've been married for 30 years. I've been with Seton Hall for 22. I've been with the Northeast Conference for going on 26 years. Just that I've been able to keep a lot of long-term relationships. That's a lot of work, and I'm proud of that too.
Dave Popkin, thank you so much for doing our Inside Nutley podcast. I hope you enjoyed it.
Tom, it was great. It's a pleasure. And we would love for people to get involved in Nutley Family Service Bureau. We need volunteers, people to come to our events. nutleyfamily.org is the website, or just stop by 169 Chestnut.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tom.